The Little Stranger and Room are both adapted from novels, but this is obviously a lot different. What was it about this story that made you invest your time in to adapt it?
I mean, when I started reading it, I wasn't reading it with adaptation in mind, but I just loved it. And I loved it in that particular way where I felt I could sort of see it. And then I was fascinated by what Sarah Waters was doing, how she was using these genre patterns and ghost story ideas to like tell a really pretty rich story about class, about childhood, about what it is you carry with you into later life from childhood that can affect you, whether you know it or not. And I just thought it was so clever how she wove all these things together. It wouldn't leave me alone, and I read it several times, and yeah, I just I was saying to somebody before that I usually try and find ways to not do things because I'm a pessimist, so I always think things will be a disaster, and I'm lazy, so it's handy to just go, oh well, forget it, I'm not going to do it. So the things I do are the things that I can't not do, and this was one of those.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say to you. I mean, you can't pigeonhole this story. There's many layers to it, and people just shouldn't go in thinking it's a straight ghost story.
Absolutely, or a horror.
Or a horror, exactly. I mean, because it has that many layers, how difficult is it? I mean, what are the challenges of trying to adapt that to the screen?
Well, the thing is, you just can't go, okay, what's the genre? What are the rules? But that's like all good filmmaking challenges aren't they? What is this story? What is this thing about? Not like, what sort of thing am I doing today? So I was thinking about it, like, we do now, in a way, consume films a bit like you go into a restaurant, you say, I feel like the steak, no, I'll have the chicken, I'll go on, I'll have the burger. And then you expect it to come out and be exactly that thing. And there's nothing wrong with that, and nothing wrong with saying, you want a good action movie and then going and seeing one. I think this is the bit this is like the surprise, This is like the surprise dish or the taster menu where you sit there, and the best way to experience it is to let it come at you without expectations. And then what I think you find is a very unsettling story about people who are real and not just there to serve the genre. So you don't have the ex-cop who's put his gun down but is brought back for one more assignment, or you don't have that thing which tells you how to read it. You just have to experience it and let it happen.
And obviously, I mean, Ruth Wilson and Domhnall Gleeson, they're just effortless in their performance. They're mesmerising, actually. You just believe it. Was there actually, I mean, because you've worked with Domhnall before as well, I mean, was he a natural choice for Dr Faraday?
Well, initially, and we've talked about this because, I had worked with him before on Frank, and we were dying to find something else to work on together again. When I sent him this, I sent him the script to read for a different part. And he said, you know what, I really want to play Faraday. And he's such an intelligent, insightful person, and the least pushy person you'll ever meet. So I knew that there was something, that he had tasted something that was... And the reason why I hadn't sent it to him for Faraday was that the character was initially a bit older. So what we did was we talked about it, and the more we talked, the more excited I got, and then worked with Lucinda Coxon, the screenwriter, to make Faraday work as a slightly younger man, and then everything else flowed from that.
Yeah. And also the mansion as well. I mean, that gives it its own atmospheric intensity as well. I mean, how did you find that property?
So we were lucky enough to work with a brilliant designer called Simon Elliott, who has like an encyclopedic knowledge of shootable British houses, right? Because there aren't that many places like that which are just crumbly enough, not too crumbly, and in which you can shoot. So we looked at a load of places. This was the place he suggested actually first, and is the place we ended up shooting in outside London. And then we did some other stuff in Yorkshire with a kind of house in better repair for the 1919 stuff. But it was, I mean, it's a big part of the film.
It is. It's a character of its own.
It is.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your time today.
Pleasure, Zehra. Lovely to meet you. Take care.
Thank you so much.